People are struggling and developing steadily. No system, talent flow. Not deliberately targeting Xiao Yan, not opening the harem, and seeking opportunities reasonably. Black Sun Disaster, Jie Jie Jie. Keywords of the novel. Dou Po. Emperor Yang with no pop-ups, Dou Po. Complete collection of Emperor Yang TXT download, Dou Po. Latest chapter of Emperor Yang reading. Chapter 1. Wei Yang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Wei Yang Doushi Continent, Northwest. Gamma Empire, Yutun City. A star fighter. In the simple rooms of the west of the city, the light is slightly dim. The handsome young man, dressed in black and about 12 or 13 years old, slowly opened his eyes, with a flash of brilliance in his eyes. Slowly exhale a mouthful of turbid air. Wei Yang's eyes were a bit dazed. In the blink of an eye, I have been in this world for a full 6 years. At the age of 6, he began practicing the Qi of Dou. Now, 6 years have passed and he has finally succeeded in breaking through the Dou. My qualifications should not be inferior to Xiao Yan, and I may even have a slight advantage, Wei Yang said to himself. Xiao Yan started practicing at the age of 4 and broke through the martial arts at the age of 11 or 12. And I started practicing at the age of 6, and I was also a breakthrough fighter around the age of 12. From this perspective alone, I am slightly ahead of Xiao Yan. Of course, perhaps both sides have different attitudes. After all, as the son of the Xiao family leader, Xiao Yan grew up in a luxurious lifestyle and was surrounded by praise, without the sense of urgency. However, Wei Yang was different. When he came to this world, his predecessors' parents, who were mercenaries, had already fallen into the Warcraft Mountains. As an orphan, he also learned that this was a land of fighting spirit. The sense of crisis and urgency forced him to work hard to cultivate. No system, no golden finger. The only advantage is being familiar with the plot and knowing many opportunities. But without strength, even if we know many opportunities, we can only stare blankly. So, he has not dared to slack off at all in the past 6 years. Finally breaking through today and becoming a fighter. Nowadays, Xiao Yan is only 9 years old, with an 8-dan fighting spirit and a genius name that has long been spread, and he has already gained some fame. Wei Yang is different, very low key, almost unknown in Wutan City, only slightly transparent. Xiao Yan, I am 3 years older than you and now I am a fighter. When you become a fighter 3 years later, I'm afraid I'll already be a fighter or above. Afterwards, your fighting spirit disappeared, your realm fell, and you remained silent for 3 years. This time, it was a gap of 6 years. As both travelers, my fellow townsman's talent is not inferior to yours. Even if you directly cheat and rise up in the future. The gap of these 6 years can be slowly pursued by you, Jie Jie. Wei Yang smiled in his heart. Of course, he wouldn't even admit it to death. He actually ate 82 lemons, which were sour after all. He also wants to cheat, but unfortunately not. Doja. Wei Yang immediately shook his head, no longer thinking much, but closed his eyes slightly, and his mind gradually sank into his body. Insights. An auxiliary skill that can only be mastered after entering the fighter, and the higher the strength, the more thorough the exploration of the situation inside the body. Wei Yang's mind sank into his lower abdomen and suddenly saw a palm-sized milky white cyclone slowly spinning. At the periphery of the cyclone, there is a layer of milky white energy gas resembling a nebula. As Wei Yang gazed at the palm-sized cyclone, he couldn't help but feel a hint of joy in his heart. After all, it was the result of his hard work for 6 years. This is fighting spirit. It can be clearly felt that the energy contained in it is more than 10 times stronger than the previous Judan Do Qi. The fighting spirit of a fighter is almost fundamentally different from that of a 9-dan fighter. The energy absorbed by the fighter before is called the fighting qi, which is the stage of strengthening the body and laying the foundation. After the fighter, the energy absorbed is called true fighting spirit. Although there is only a one-word difference between the two, the difference between them is like a world of difference, with no comparability in terms of quality or quantity. As Wei Yang's mind continued to control the cyclone's throughput, strands of pale red energy from heaven and earth converged and were refined and absorbed by the cyclone. Time passes by. After becoming more proficient in controlling the cyclone, Wei Yang stopped and withdrew his mind from his body. Opening his eyes, a milky white light appeared in the pitch-black eyes and gradually dissipated. Next, it's time to cultivate suitable techniques. Wei Yang stood up and slowly stretched his body, his bones making a clicking sound like stir-fried beans. Jie Jie opening the door, there is a simple and tidy small courtyard outside. Facing the rising sun, Wei Yang stood in the courtyard, secretly contemplating some future plans in his heart. After breaking through to the fighter, in order to quickly improve and grow in cultivation speed, it is necessary to cultivate techniques that are suitable for one's own attributes. The martial arts and combat techniques are divided into 4 levels. The heavenly and heavenly Xianhuang, and each level is further divided into 3 levels. Junior high and senior high. The attribute of Wei Yang is fire, with a slight variation in the Yang genus, which has been tested long ago. Unfortunately, there is no trace of wood attribute in the attributes. This is very speechless. As a traveler, due to the fusion of souls, strong soul power is fundamental and requires no further explanation. And strong soul power is a good seedling for becoming a noble alchemist. Unfortunately, his attribute is fire, but he doesn't have the slightest wood attribute. Instead, he has a mutated yang attribute. By blinded his powerful soul power. The alchemist is delicious. But it's not completely hopeless either. Wei Yang has some ideas in his heart. If they can be achieved after all, attributes can be acquired through some special genius treasures or techniques, allowing oneself to possess other attributes in the future. Of course, the main attribute cannot be changed. But you can obtain other attributes. Just like in the original work, Xiao Yan practiced the earth-level body method and martial arts of 3,000 thunder moves, which contained the power of thunder. In thunderstorms, he induced thunder to harden his body, giving himself a trace of thunder attribute in later life. Qingshan Earth Heart Fire. The flame ranked 19th on the strange fire list. This is a flame with wood properties. Not to mention the inner fire of Qingshan, just the 11 lotus seeds accompanying the lotus seed, after absorbing and refining them, may be able to give oneself a trace of wood attribute. As for whether it works or not, we still need to try before we can determine. Of course, this is still too far away and will happen in the future, provided that there is sufficient strength. At present, the most important issue is still the cultivation of martial arts. After a simple wash, Wei Yang ate something casually and returned to his room, sitting down at his desk. On the desk, there are many books placed. Such as Basic Knowledge of Herbs, Common Medicinal Properties of Herbs, Beginner's Basics for Physicians, How to Become an Alchemist, Beginner's Basics for Alchemists, Basic Hemostatic and Healing Formulas, Rare and Precious Records of Heaven and Earth, and so on. These are all basic knowledge books about alchemists, which Wei Yang spent his time collecting and flipping through daily. Even if you can't become an alchemist in the future, it's still good to learn more knowledge. After all, cultivation always relies on elixirs, spiritual medicines, and the like. It's not a bad thing to have some understanding. His strong soul, sensitive mind, good comprehension, and strong memory make it easy for him to understand and remember these basic knowledge. Wei Yang opened the drawer and took out a light red book from inside. Huangjia Advanced Skill. Red Fire Determination. This is a cultivation technique left by the previous parents. Wei Yang shook his head somewhat helplessly and put down the book in his hand. The advanced Huangjia technique is too low. Level. A cultivation method that can reach the peak of a dosha at most, with slow cultivation speed and poor quality of duqi produced. The fighting spirit cultivated by this cultivation method has no advantage in combat effectiveness compared to its peers. But at present, Wei Yang has no choice but to cultivate this red fire technique and wait until he finds a better method to improve it in the future. Let's stick to it for 2 years. After all, he is only 12 years old now, and his strength has just become a fighter. After leaving this city of Yuten, there is no guarantee of safety outside. It's better not to go out in the waves for now. There is nothing else in this life, only caution. Thinking of this, Wei Yang picked up the book and opened it. He had already read the contents countless times, and it was not an exaggeration to say that he could recite them fluently. However, he still carefully read them again. Until it is confirmed that there are no omissions. Start. Wei Yang put down his books, got up, returned to the bed, sat cross-legged, and closed his eyes. P.S. The protagonist and Xiao Yan are not hostile, but rather a kind of friendship and cooperative relationship. But it's not about licking, but about everyone working together for a win-win situation, each taking their own needs, so there's no need to lick or not lick. After all, knowing that decades later, there will be a crisis of the Soul Emperor sacrificing to sentient beings, there is no need to cause internal friction. Of course, if some friends think that being friends with Xiao Yan is closer and that's licking, then it's licking. I have nothing to say. New friends, please watch carefully. Finally, everyone has their own thoughts and preferences, which is understandable, and I also show respect. But if you don't like it, just click on the cross, there's no need to curse each other, right? There are so many Dou Po fans, and there are several books that I opened at the same time as me, so there's no need to be conflicted. The reason why I wrote Dou Po fans proves that I also like this book. I can't say I like Xiao Yan very much, but at least I don't dislike it. I started reading Dou Po this book at the end of 2012, which can be considered the beginning of my online writing pitfall. So subconsciously, I don't want to follow Xiao Yan. I hope everyone can understand. As a fan, I have never had any grudges with the protagonist of the original work, including my previous book that devoured my fan. This is a book that I love and also a form of respect for the original work. New book Seedlings, Seeking Care, Collecting, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Doushi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Doushi 3 days later. By practicing the red fire technique, Wei Yang successfully transformed the milky white non-attribute fighting qi in the elixir field into a light red fire fighting qi. In Dantian, a light red cyclone appears ordinary but gives off a hint of fierceness. By practicing martial arts, one's own fighting spirit not only solidifies a lot, improving quality, but also increases in quantity, which in turn enhances the power of fighting spirit. This is the benefit of practicing martial arts, even if it is only a yellow-level advanced technique. The fire-fighting qi cultivated is much stronger in both quality and quantity compared to the initial attribute-free milky white fighting qi. Wei Yang clenched his fist and could clearly feel that he was stronger than before. But soon, he forcefully suppressed this mood. Continuing to cultivate, currently just a small fighter, cannot be proud. You won't leave the level until you reach Doushi. Wei Yang continued to practice with his eyes closed, using his techniques to gradually strengthen the cyclone. Perhaps due to their own good qualifications, or perhaps due to other reasons, this advanced Huangjie technique seems to operate faster than imagined when practiced. This may be a typical case of having good qualifications, but poor martial arts skills, mismatched qualifications and techniques, and unable to fully unleash one's full potential. But due to his excellent qualifications, the cultivation speed of this ordinary technique has been slightly increased. If you don't have the necessary qualifications, you need to improve your skills. Having good qualifications but poor martial arts skills makes it difficult for a small horse to pull a big cart. Half the effort with half the effort. Time passes by. In the blink of an eye, another 3 years have passed. In the slightly dimly lit room, a handsome young man dressed in black sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. Suddenly, the young man's body trembled slightly, and a strong momentum suddenly rose, gradually dissipating after a few seconds. Wei Yang opened his eyes, and a faint red light flashed through his pitch-black pupils. Open your mouth slightly and slowly exhale a mouthful of turbid air. 6-star fighting master. Clenching his fist and feeling the surging fighting spirit inside his body, Wei Yang couldn't help but smile at the corner of his mouth. It's another 3 years of hard work. With the advanced Huangjie technique, there is no chance, and no pills are taken to assist in cultivation. I practice hard in seclusion. At most, I only occasionally use my own knowledge of pharmacology to mix body-quenching liquid for bathing. I have reached the level of a 6-star fighting master, only one step away, and now I am a high-level fighting master. This speed is already very fast. Moreover, over the past 3 years, Wei Yang has been desperately compressing his own fighting spirit, focusing on solidifying his own foundation. Every time, he suppressed and then suppressed until there was no pressure left, and finally made a natural breakthrough. Otherwise, he might have already reached the pinnacle of the 9-star fighting master. Now that Wei Yang has just turned 15, he has become a 6-star fighter. Doushi represents breaking away from the mainstream level. Although the level of Doushi can only be considered as a lower class on the entire continent, it can already be considered a proper middle and upper class in the Gamma Empire, especially in Yutun City. Compared to those who are almost at the bottom of the class, it is undoubtedly much stronger and more advanced. Wei Yang stood up and clenched his fists tightly. A sense of unprecedented strength flows through every part of the body. Only by personally stepping into the Doushi class can one understand how big the gap between Doushi and Doushi is. That's a difference of 10 times, dozens of times. Slowly stretch your body. Pili pala, my whole body and bones made a stir-fried bean-like sound. Standing in place, Wei Yang extended his right palm and moved with his mind. Suddenly, a faint red color with a faint golden hue suddenly appeared in the palm of the hand, and quickly spread to the surface of the body. Subsequently, the fighting spirit converged again, and in an instant, the pale red fighting spirit formed a layer of defense on the surface of the body. Duki Shai, this is the signature skill of Doushi Chang and also the most practical skill. Whether it's speed, defense, attack, etc., there are certain bonuses. And because Wei Yang is already a 6-star Doushi, this Duki gauze garment appears incredibly solid, completely covering every corner of his body. At this level, the fighting spirit within the Doushi's body is already capable of attacking enemies from within. These are all things that fighters do not possess. Standing in place, Wei Yang was covered in a beautiful and majestic light red veil, exuding a burning sensation that even the surrounding temperature had risen significantly. Quickly hit the air ahead with a few punches. Woo, just relying on physical strength, it makes the fist emit a sharp sound of breaking the wind. Wei Yang nodded in satisfaction and said, in the past 3 years, I have used my knowledge of pharmacology to mix body-quenching fluid and soak in baths, which has made my physique much stronger than ordinary martial artists of the same level. From time to time, he takes a bath with body-quenching fluid, and last year when he broke through Doushi, the energy from heaven and earth infused his body, strengthening his body through washing and washing, which has created his current strong physique. Xiao Yan is almost 12 years old now, and recently broke through the Daodu and became a renowned genius throughout the entire Gamma Empire, with a reputation outside. However, according to the timeline, he should be about to face the trouble of being absorbed by the old 6, Yao Lao. I fell from heaven to hell at once. I was lifted up high and then fell down. How proud I am now, I will have more setbacks in the future. Wei Yang put away his Duki gauze clothes, his whole breath converging like an ordinary person, secretly laughing in his heart. That is to say, there are still 3 years left until the plot officially begins. And during these 3 years, Wei Yang can make good use of it and plan for himself. For Xiao Yan, Wei Yang had no hostile thoughts, nor did he intend to target him or deliberately target him. After all, there is no enmity or resentment between the two sides, and no matter what, they can still be considered fellow villagers. Not to mention licking, but there is really no need to deliberately offend. Regarding this, we can also cooperate and benefit each other. If you can't become an alchemist in the future, then become friends with the alchemist. It still takes a lot of courage to confront the protagonist of the Son of Destiny. It's almost like seeking death. At least Wei Yang personally thinks it's completely unnecessary. It's not Long Outyan. In terms of personality, Xiao Yan is not too likable, but he is not too bad either. At least he can treat his friends well. Except for a bit of procrastination in terms of emotions, everything else is okay, not a white-eyed wolf. Everyone has selfishness, and they are not saints. As a friend, Xiao Yan can still rest assured. As for luck, of course, what should be snatched is still to be snatched. Now that I am a 6-star dosher, I have gained some initial self-protection power in the Gamma Empire and can go out to find some opportunities. As long as you are cautious and don't provoke people who shouldn't, the problem should not be too big, Wei Yang said to himself. First stop, let's go to Qingshan town first. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Meeting with fellow villagers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Meeting with fellow villagers in the yard. There are neatly arranged medicine shelves, on which some medicinal herbs are hung for drying. Wei Yang is currently organizing. After all, it may take a long time to go out this time, and these medicinal herbs need to be properly placed. He bought all the medicinal herbs from the local market. For the past 3 years, besides practicing every day, he also studied and pounded medicinal herbs on his own, and now he can be considered a doctor. Wei Yang has concocted some ordinary wound hemostatic powder, scar-removing ointment, and the effect is quite good. These medicinal powders and ointments, he sometimes goes to the local market to set up a stall and sell them for money, which can be considered as a successful opening of the market and a small reputation. Make money, after all, with high martial arts skills, you also need to eat. Dong 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 dong. At this moment, the courtyard door was knocked. Is Dr. Wei here? A loud voice was shouting outside. Yes, here we are. Wei Yang responded, put down his work, and turned to open the door. The courtyard door opens. Outside the door, a burly man of all sizes was standing there, dressed in mercenary attire, exuding a fierce aura. Dr. Wei, do you still remember me? The strong man tried to pull out a slightly sinister smile on his face and spoke softly as much as possible. Remember, you are Captain Meng. Wei Yang nodded and asked, come find me to buy medicine. Yes, our team is planning to go to the Warcraft Mountains in 2 days, so we would like to ask you to buy some medicine to take with us, the strong man replied in a muffled voice. Come on in. Wei Yang turned around and walked inside. What medicine do you want to buy? Captain Zhuang Hanmeng walked up and said, we need everything. Things like hemostatic, blood stasis removing, and detoxifying, all of them. Wei Yang nodded and led him into the hall. He saw some bottles and jars placed on the counter next to the hall. On the back wall cabinet, there are also many bottles, jars, and wooden boxes placed. After gaining fame, Wei Yang has rarely gone out to set up stalls recently, and usually old and familiar customers come to buy them themselves. After he walked to the counter, he pointed to the wooden frame used for classification and said, choose which one you want, you have a name introduction. I need it. Captain Meng nodded and casually lowered his head to carefully select. Quickly, Captain Meng picked out the medicine he needed, in bottles and wooden boxes, totaling 40 portions. Wei Yang took out a paper bag and handed it to him, 40 gold coins, here, pack it yourself. Captain Meng took the paper bag and grinned, happily taking out coins from his pocket to pay the bill, and then packed everything in. Dr. Wei, I'll go first, Captain Meng said, carrying a paper bag. I may need to go out recently, which may take 2 or 3 months, so don't come to me to buy medicine during this time. I'm not here, Wei Yang said. Also, Dr. Wei is just Dr. Wei. Why add a small character? I'm used to it. Captain Meng scratched his head. Okay, I got it, Wei Xiao. Dr. Wei, I'll come back to buy medicine from you in 3 months. Captain Meng said, turning around and leaving with his bag in hand. Watching his departing figure, Wei Yang shook his head and began to tidy up the counter. These 5 big and 3 thick hammers. Looking down at myself again, I am 15 years old, nearly 170 tall, and handsome in appearance. Although I am pure and refined, I may seem a bit thin, but in reality, I am a type of person who appears thin when dressed and fleshy when undressed. Muscles are not exaggerated, but rather robust types. Anyway, where is it small? Special. Wei Yang reached into his arms, took out the money bag from his pocket, opened it, and put the gold coins inside. Not yet. Don't joke anymore. A basic ring starts at 50,000 gold coins. Yes. Get up. It's not surprising to actually land at 80,000 to 100,000. That thing, where can I afford it? A typical luxury item in the Doushi continent. Exclusive to the nobility. The next day. In the morning sun rises. Wei Yang locked the courtyard door and carried an animal skin package before leaving. Step out of the alley and onto the street outside. In the morning glow, the entire city of Wutan began to awaken early, appearing very lively, with a surging crowd and full of vitality. The streets are bustling with people and traffic. From time to time, you can see groups of mercenaries, wielding knives and swords, passing by in groups of 3 or 5, carrying a fierce aura. Due to its proximity to the Warcraft Mountains, the most abundant mercenaries here are those who lick blood with their swords, which is also the foundation of the high popularity of Wutan City. Wei Yang walked with steps towards the city gate. Not long after, an entrance to a large neighborhood market appeared ahead. This is a neighborhood belonging to one of the 3 major families. The Xiao family. The guards at the entrance stood straight, dressed in neat clothes and fully equipped, looking very spirited as they stood one by one. At this moment, a loud and noisy noise suddenly came from the entrance of the market. Wei Yang couldn't help but stop and look curiously at the situation. Xiao Yan is here. It's young master Xiao Yan. 3rd young master. Young master Xiao Yan is so handsome. Xiao Yan. Wei Yang raised his eyebrows and gazed intently. Are you finally going to see this fellow villager? On the street ahead, a handsome young man, aged about 12 or 13, with a youthful face, arrived at the entrance of the neighborhood surrounded by a group of young girls. Wherever it passes, there is a scene of noise and praise, just like a celebrity traveling. And the leading Xiao Yan also calmly faced this situation. He wore a smile on his face, welcoming everyone's cheers, praise, and compliments. Without a doubt, at this moment, among a group of young girls, Xiao Yan is the most beautiful guy on the entire street. The 3rd young master of the Xiao family. The proud son of heaven, the renowned genius of the empire. Xiao Yan is not yet 12 years old and is already a star fighter. This scene. High-spirited and full of sharpness. TSK. Wei Yang smiled and said, at the age of 15, I am a 6-star fighter. Am I proud? Wei Yang carefully observed the fellow villager and saw a faint hint of anxiety between Xiao Yan's radiant eyebrows. And the smile at the corner of his mouth seemed a bit stiff. Oh. It seems that Yao Lao's old 6 has already started. Wei Yang secretly guessed. At this point, Xiao Yan had not yet fallen into the realm, but it was estimated that the fighting spirit he practiced every day had begun to inexplicably disappear. I work hard to cultivate every day, but my fighting spirit is not advancing at all. I dare not speak to others, and it's strange that I don't feel anxious in my heart. Soon, his realm will begin to decline. Yao Lao is not inferior to this kind of fighting spirit, probably more of a test for future disciples. After all, Yao Lao has already been tricked by his own disciples once, so it's not surprising to be cautious. And previously, including now, Xiao Yan did not quite meet the requirements of traditional Chinese medicine in terms of mental health. It's too flamboyant, I haven't experienced any setbacks. So, this is the kind care from the old pharmacist. Wei Yang couldn't help but shake his head and smile at the thought, and then his gaze fell on another person. Besides Xiao Yan, there is a beautiful girl aged 11 or 12, with a temperament like a green lotus. Xiao Suner, it should be Gu Suner. This is a thick-thigh, little rich woman. Wei Yang couldn't help but feel hot in his heart and wanted to stop working hard. Envy, jealousy, and hatred. Unfortunately, there is no play. It seemed that she noticed Wei Yang's gaze, and Gu Suner looked over. His gaze fell on Wei Yang, and a hint of surprise flashed through her cold and beautiful eyes. 6-star fighting master, very young and with a strong soul wave, is he an alchemist? Gu Suner was somewhat surprised in her heart. Just take a glance and you'll notice it, how sharp your perception is. Wei Yang was startled by this, but his face didn't show any signs. Instead, he nodded at her with a smile and then turned around to leave. This person is not worth it. He doesn't want to catch Gu Suner's attention at all now. They always bring Do Huang bodyguards when they go out. Gu Suner turned her head slightly, her gaze vaguely following Wei Yang's departure. Her willow eyebrows furrowed slightly, and there was a hint of surprise in her eyes. Very young, probably at most 14 or 15 years old, with a solid aura and no frivolity, and a good foundation. I didn't expect to see such talented young men in this remote Gamma Empire. Are they from somewhere else? Gu Suner immediately withdrew her gaze and ignored it. There are many people like Wei Yang who are more outstanding than others in the ancient tribe. I was just a little surprised to see you suddenly in this remote city of Yuten. It's not worth her thinking too much. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Qingshan Town. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Qingshan Town. Leaving Yuten City, walking on the way to Qingshan Town. Wei Yangkai breathed a sigh of relief. Facing Gu Suner's gaze, it is false to say that she is not nervous. After all, Gu Suner's side always secretly follows at least 2 powerful Do Huang warriors. He doesn't want to attract anyone's attention now. Before he had the strength to protect himself, Wei Yang did not want any accidents to happen. Whether he has delusions of persecution or fear of insufficient firepower, these are all inherited from his ancestors. Living alone in this foreign world, without any support, he has no sense of security. We must be cautious and cautious. A few days later. At dusk. Wei Yang finally arrived at his destination smoothly. A small town located on the outskirts of the Warcraft Mountains. Qingshan Town. This is a mercenary town. Entering the town, most of the people on the streets were mercenaries, relying on the Warcraft Mountains to make a living. A young man like Wei Yang, who looks pure and elegant, seems somewhat out of place. He was dressed in black and walked step by step in the town. Some mercenaries passing by looked at Wei Yang with curious eyes, some of whom were hesitant and even made some teasing remarks. Hey, which family's young master is this? He came here to play. Ha, I said young master, go home quickly. Keep your voice down, it's not good to scare others into crying later. Ha ha ha. Wei Yang's face remained calm, too lazy to pay attention. These strongest fighter mercenaries, no more than 3 or 4 stars, really didn't arouse his slightest interest. There's no need to argue with them either. Not far into the town, Wei Yang saw a shop called Wanyaozhai ahead. Wanyaozhai, this is a famous Czech.in spot. Wei Yang stopped and watched with great interest. This place is very popular, with groups of mercenaries entering and exiting in groups of 3 to 5. Sometimes, injured individuals may be carried in and out. Standing in front of the store, Wei Yang watched quietly while listening attentively. I didn't hear anything about the little Dr. Immortal from the mercenaries around me. It seems that the little medical immortal at this time has either not yet arrived here, or has just arrived, is young, and has not yet graduated, so naturally he does not have much reputation. After all, in terms of age, the little medical immortal at this time is at most 12 or 13 years old, right? After watching for a while, Wei Yang turned around and left. He did not have any intention of seeking or actively provoking the little Dr. Immortal. It is undeniable that the little Dr. Immortal is indeed a difficult topic for many people, including Wei Yang himself. But, the calamity poison body is really a big trouble. Wei Yang didn't think about opening any harem. Go up when you see a beautiful woman. Not existing. After all, you have provoked others, but you are responsible for them. Wei Yang doesn't like trouble. He is currently struggling and hasn't gotten along yet. He doesn't have the intention to flirt with other people and provoke those who don't. Although it is true that some people crave for their top-notch waist, it currently only exists in imagination and has not even been seen by anyone. Try not to touch high-difficulty items like the poison body. Well, anyway, we have a mentality of dispensability. Don't take the initiative, don't refuse, just go with the flow. Besides, isn't Qingli fragrant? That's the real snake waste. Found an inn and opened a good room. After dinner and washing up early, Wei Yang sat cross-legged on the bed, practicing his martial arts while also concentrating his thoughts. The operation route of advanced yellow-level techniques like Red Fire Ju is not complicated. After 3 years of cultivation, I have become extremely familiar with the route, and even with my eyes closed, I won't make any mistakes. With the powerful soul power of Wei Yang, even while practicing, he can allocate some of his mental energy to think about things without interfering. We need to get a precept, Wei Yang muttered to himself. The cliff cave here in Qingshan town has a chance, and the gold and silver treasures inside are piled up like mountains, worth at least millions of gold coins as a foundation. How can you take them away without a ring? And there are also many precious medicinal herbs inside, which also need to be packaged with rings. But Neji and that thing are expensive. He only has a few hundred gold coins on him now, so he can't afford it. Among all the people in the mainland who are known for their fighting spirit, I'm probably the only one who has suffered the most, right? It's already a 6-star fighting master, so I don't even have a ring, and my whole body is only a few hundred gold coins. It's embarrassing to say it out loud. And the chance of the cliff cave is also outrageous. The inheritance cave left by a powerful Douhuang warrior even had a mountain of gold coins, but it did not contain any precepts or martial arts, which is very unreasonable. I don't want to, let's find that cave first. If possible, bring some jewelry and sell it, buy a ring, and then go back. Warcraft Mountain Range. This is a paradise for mercenary adventurers, where countless mercenaries enter every day to embark on adventures, either hunting monsters to obtain magic cores or picking precious elixirs. Of course, there are also many mercenaries who enter inside every day and never come out again. In the forest, towering ancient trees stand tall and winding with old vines. Shwa! A black shadow suddenly flashed out of a thicket. Crushed stone palm. Crushed stone palm, intermediate yellow level combat skill. Bang! The palm, which exuded a pale red fighting spirit, slammed fiercely on the head of a first-order pig-like monster. Visible to the naked eye, the head of the pig-like Warcraft sank directly. Wei Yang stood still and looked at the dead pig-like monster under his feet. He drew a dagger from his waist and skillfully sliced open the body, picking out a earthy yellow magic core from inside. Good luck, I have a magic core. Wei Yang smiled and put the magic core into his backpack. He entered the outskirts of the Warcraft Mountains and has been wandering for 5 or 6 days. He has basically explored the surrounding area and has not yet found any trace of the cliff cave. Wei Yang is not in a hurry either. Anyway, the things are there and will eventually be found. After all, there are countless cliffs and cliffs on this outskirts, so take your time to find them. After 5 or 6 days of exploration, most of the peripheral areas have been excluded, and as they gradually deepen, it is believed that the distance to the destination is getting closer and closer. After a brief rest, Wei Yang continued to move forward. The animal skin backpack behind him was bulging, filled with many herbs and magic cores. Roughly estimated, it would be worth at least 4,000 to 5,000 gold coins. Along the way, Wei Yang walked very cautiously. Although this is just the outskirts of the Warcraft Mountains, most of the encountered ones are first-order Warcraft, and there are rarely second-order Warcraft. But be careful not to make a big mistake. The incident of a boat capsizing in the sewer is not uncommon. Walking in the dense forest, relying on strong soul perception, Wei Yang would try his best to avoid any battles that could be avoided. After all, he was not here to brush small monsters. If he perceives the presence of a Warcraft ahead in advance, he will choose to take a detour to avoid it. Only those that cannot be avoided can be quickly resolved. Turning around all the way, towards the afternoon, Wei Yang passed through a dense forest. The dim gaze suddenly brightened up. Wei Yang looked up and saw a slightly steep cliff in front of him. Below the cliff, there were lush green forests hanging over it, which was quite beautiful. Wei Yang's eyes lit up when he saw this, and he quickly came to the edge of the cliff to overlook the endless green mountains in the distance. The terrain here seems to be very similar to the description in the original work. Retrieving his gaze, Wei Yang quickly scanned the edge of the cliff, confirming that there was no danger nearby. Only then did he poke his head out and carefully search for it on the cliff. Between the steep cliffs, the cliffs are rugged, covered with protruding gravel blocks, randomly growing strange trees, and some bones and other things. Wei Yang's gaze slowly swept over the walls of these disciples. Soon, his gaze stopped at a mountain wall obscured by horizontal beams. The strange wood on the mountain wall here may not seem different from other places at first glance, but due to preparation, Wei Yang keenly noticed some differences. Squinting his eyes slightly, under the slanting sunlight, Wei Yang seemed to be able to see the pitch-black void on the cliff through the gap between the trees. It should be here, finally found. Wei Yang secretly rejoiced. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Treasure Exploration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Treasure Exploration. Deep mountains and wild forests, cliffs, cave treasure hunting, remnants of previous generations. It's very exciting to think about. At this moment, Wei Yang licked his lips with some excitement, took out a bundle of ropes that had been prepared long ago from the package, and tied them to a tree pole. I turned my head and looked around, listened attentively for a while, and confirmed that there was no threat around. Treasure exploration, start. Wei Yang tugged hard at the rope, tested it and found no problem. With a gentle tap on the cliff, his body quickly slid straight down towards the bottom of the cliff. When Wei Yang was not far from the suspicious location, his hand tightened and his rapidly sliding figure paused, hanging in mid-air. Taking a light breath, Wei Yang looked sideways at the nearby horizontal bushes and the pitch-black void hidden behind them. At this point, you can clearly see the hidden cave behind the horizontal bushes. It's very hidden, and it's really difficult to see this place from a distance above the cliff. Found it. Wei Yang breathed a sigh of relief in his heart, and a happy expression floated in his heart. This is a great opportunity. Unlike Xiao Yan is led by the big shot of medicine master, and he does not lack this opportunity. But for Wei Yang, this was a great opportunity to change his own destiny. With a gentle tiptoe and the swaying of the rope, Wei Yang slowly drew closer to the cave. Shwa! At this moment, a yellow-brown shadow, with a faint sound of breaking through the air, suddenly rushed towards Wei Yang. Wei Yang's heart flashed with a hint of warning, his eyes narrowed, and his left hand released the rope to quickly poke out, accurately grasping the yellow shadow. Rock snake. Watching the rock snake sneaking into his hand and being pinched by him for 7 inches, Wei Yang sneered, "I've been guarding against you for a long time. If you insist on provoking me, I'll die." Rock snake, this is a type of snake-like monster that lives on rock walls, first order. This type of warcraft, with its body flattened like wings, can fly in the air like a falcon. Moreover, due to its mutated stone nature, its body is as hard as a stone, making it difficult for ordinary swords to damage. Plus, it likes to live on cliffs, and its surface color is very similar to rocks, so it's difficult to entangle. Now encountering Wei Yang is different. He had already been mentally prepared, and he was also a 6-star fighter. The rock snake, which was difficult to deal with in the eyes of ordinary mercenaries, was just like that in Wei Yang's eyes. The rock snake was pinched 7 inches, revealing its sharp and cold fangs, making a hissing sound and revealing a fierce light. Its body twisted desperately, as if trying to wrap around Wei Yang's arm. Humph! With a forceful squeeze on his hand, Wei Yang broke the 7-inch bone of the rock snake and threw it casually, causing the rock snake to fall into the bottomless valley. Immediately, following the rope, Wei Yang slowly descended outside the cave. Stepping on a piece of gravel outside the cave, Wei Yang hung a rope around a tree and carefully scrutinized it. The entrance of the cave is densely covered with gravel and strange wood, concealing it very well. Wei Yang did not have any intention of destroying them. After all, this is the tomb of that ancestor, and the ancestors always do not want anyone to disturb them here all day. So he gently peeled open the branches, carefully moved away the gravel, revealing a hole that could be drilled in, and then bent down to drill in. After entering, the cave entrance was not spacious and could only accommodate 2 or 3 people passing through. The cave was dark, but there was a faint light emitting, giving off a somewhat eerie and mysterious feeling. Around the entrance of the cave, there are many artificial marks resembling cuts and axes. However, perhaps due to the passage of time, these traces have become extremely blurred. If not observed carefully, they may not have been discovered. Wei Yang took out a candle from his backpack and lit it. The faint light suddenly illuminated the nearby area. Wei Yang held a candle in his left hand and walked slowly in. He was not careless, but carefully walked in the quiet and dark cave, with a light red fighting aura on his right palm, constantly vigilant. Who knows if there are any hidden dangers inside, such as rock snakes? After all, even though one is familiar with the plot, there is still nearly 4 to 5 years left until then, and even if some unexpected events occur, it is not surprising. In the dark and quiet passage, only the faint footsteps of Wei Yang sounded, and a faint chill couldn't help but linger in his heart. After walking for about 10 minutes in such a quiet atmosphere, I finally reached the end of the deep passage. Ahead appeared a stone door emitting a faint yellow light. Seeing this stone gate, Wei Yang couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Being alone and walking in this quiet and dark tomb passage is thrilling. After calming his mind, Wei Yang walked forward and reached out to touch the stone gate, feeling very heavy. It was estimated that at least a strong fighter would have to exert all his strength to destroy it. Of course, Wei Yang did not have the intention to destroy the stone gate, but carefully searched near it. Through the faint glow of the candle, faint marks can be seen on the surrounding stone walls. Although these scratches have blurred over time, some figures can still be seen on them. Found it. Beside the stone gate, Wei Yang touched a small bump below it and lightly pressed it with his fingers. A creaking sound slowly began in the cave. The stone gate gradually began to move upwards. As the stone gate moved upwards, a faint light emanated from inside, driving away all the darkness nearby. At the same time, a faint fragrance also emanated. Looking at the bright interior of the stone gate, Wei Yang smiled slightly and walked slowly inside. As I stepped into the stone gate, my sight suddenly became more spacious. Inside, there is a huge stone chamber that looks somewhat simple and spacious. Above the surrounding walls, there are inlaid moonlight stones used for lighting. In the center of the stone chamber, there is a seat, on which a dead bone sits. The skull has already fallen and landed on the pale thigh bone of the dead bone. This scene, this appearance, appears somewhat eerie and terrifying in this quiet atmosphere. In front of the seat, there is a quite wide and long blue stone platform. On the blue stone platform, there are 3 locked stone boxes neatly arranged. In the 3 corners of the stone chamber, 3 piles of small mountains of gold coins and some treasures such as jewelry were piled up. Roughly speaking, the quantity of gold coins alone is not less than hundreds of thousands, and with the addition of jewelry and other items, the value is probably not less than millions of gold coins. Tsk tisk, it's posted. Seeing these gold coins and treasures, Wei Yang's eyes were shining. After looking for a while, he finally shifted his gaze away from the 3 piles of golden treasures and looked elsewhere. In the last corner, there is a small flower bed piled up with soil. In the flower bed, various spiritual medicines are planted like flowers and plants, with a strange fragrance lingering in the stone chamber. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Surprise and Harvest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Surprise and Harvest. Purple orchid leaves, white spirit ginseng fruit, snow lotus seed, blood lotus essence. Standing in front of the flower bed, Wei Yang looked at these precious spiritual medicines and carefully identified some he knew, as well as many he didn't. These seemingly casually planted flowers and plants are actually much more valuable in terms of value than those 3 piles of gold coins. At this moment, Wei Yang's eyes were terrifyingly bright, and at the same time, names representing rare and difficult to find advanced medicinal herbs popped out of his mouth. In the end, his gaze fell on the central position of the flower bed, which was a blade of grass alternating white and red. Ice Spirit Flame Grass. This grass leaf is divided into 2 colors. White and red. The white branches are covered with tiny ice-like particles. And above the fiery red grass canopy, it was like a flame raging. 2 completely opposite colors and attributes grow strangely on a plant, which is truly magical. A faint mist enveloped the plant, giving it a feeling of being between clouds and neon lights. If we exchange dozens of herbs in this jar with the medicine master, it would be at least a local level skill foundation, right? Wei Yang couldn't help but smile happily. These are all enviable treasures. Smelling the fragrance of herbs, he felt happy. For a long time, Wei Yang finally took a deep breath and calmed down. In the end, he turned his gaze to the 3 locked stone boxes on the blue stone platform. Stepping up to the stone table, Wei Yang bent down and touched the metal lock on the stone box with his hand. However, when he reached for it, he felt a slight warmth. After an unknown amount of time, the temperature can still be maintained, which is obviously not an ordinary metal. Wei Yang looked at the pale and withered bone sitting on the seat behind the stone table. His gaze shifted downwards, and at the palm of the withered bone, there were 3 black keys hanging on top of the bone. Senior, I have offended you. Wei Yang bowed respectfully. Then, he walked forward and carefully took off the key and placed it on the stone table. Immediately lift the bony arm and gently pinch it. Click with a loud sound, the bones of the withered arm were pinched open. Through the fracture of the bone, it can be faintly discovered that there is a small scroll hidden in the gap between the bones. One of the 4 pure lotus demon fire fragments. Wei Yang carefully and gently pulled the scroll out of the gap between his arm bones. There were 3 boxes in the open, along with precious herbs, treasures, and other items that caught the eye, but he secretly hid this scroll inside his arm bone. It seems that this senior doesn't want later generations to know about the existence of this scroll, Wei Yang said in secret. Generally speaking, when people enter the caves left by their predecessors and have the opportunity, the vast majority of them will not move a dead bone. After all, entering someone else's sleeping place is already a disturbance, and taking advantage of the benefits left by them, not to mention gratitude, no matter how boring it is to destroy their bones. This is extremely impolite, and it is rare for anyone to do so. In the original work, if it weren't for Xiao Yan's accidental use of force while retrieving the key, which resulted in tearing off the arm of the skeleton and attempting to restore it, he wouldn't have discovered this scroll. Wei Yang gently placed his hand bone back, apologized again, and then turned back to the stone table, looking down at the small scroll in his hand. This is a scroll that looks very antique, with a color that is somewhat old and yellowish. Unwind the scroll and slowly unfold it. What caught my eye was a piece of leather paper made of unknown materials, with some seemingly irregular patterns painted on the slightly yellowed leather paper. This is the biggest opportunity here. One of the remnants of the 4 pure lotus demon fire. Jinglian demon fire, ranked 3rd on the list of abnormal fires, is a unique existence in the world, only this one. In this incomplete picture, there is even a trace of remaining will left by the half-emperor, the pure lotus demon saint. Of course, it is necessary to gather all 4 incomplete images and merge them into one to reveal them. Used to suppress the pure lotus demon fire and increase the chance of subduing it. Jinglian demon fire. Wei Yang smacked his lips, his eyes filled with longing. Then he chuckled and shook his head. I've been thinking too far, he's a high-level fighter saint. However, even if we don't have the idea of clearing the lotus demon fire in the future, we can still use this incomplete map to exchange for great benefits. Isn't it too much to exchange it for a heavenly level martial arts or combat skills? Wei Yang thought to himself. There is also a famous angel investor, Ice Emperor Haibudong, who has a share. Do you want to find a way to get it? Wei Yang rolled up the remaining picture and hid it close to his chest. When the time comes, hold 2 residual images and take them out when the space sealed with the pure lotus demon fire is open, at least worth 2 heavenly level fighting skills. Besides, the chances are unlikely. After all, it's only about less than 5 years, and I don't know how to practice medicine. In the end, Wei Yang shook his head. Don't be too greedy in life. Be stable. With a restrained mind, Wei Yang picked up the 3 black keys and began to open the stone box. The first box, grabbed the warm metal lock, randomly selected one of the 3 keys, grabbed the lock head, and gently poked it through the lock hole. It's not this one. The key was only a little explored and couldn't enter. Wei Yang didn't care either, he changed his hand and continued to poke. In the quiet stone chamber, with a slight crisp sound, the metal lock was opened. As the lid was lifted, there was a colorful scroll inside. 7 colored poison classic. Wei Yang picked up the colored scroll, flipped through it casually, and then put it back. Continue to open the second box. In the second box, there is a black scroll. Take it up and flip it over. On the side of the scroll, there is a line of small characters. Xuanjia Advanced Flying Fighting Skill. Eagle Wings. Rare Flying Combat Skills, still advanced in the mysterious level. Wei Yang looked at the black scroll happily, satisfied. On the Doushi continent, if you want to fly above the ground, only strong people above Douwang can achieve it. Doushi transforms wings. And for those who are strong in fighting spirit, they can only achieve short-distance flights at most. As for underdoling, run with 2 legs. But with flying combat skills, it's different. If one's strength is not as strong as Douwang, they can have wings and fly through the air, soaring freely in the blue sky. Flying is a temptation that many people cannot resist. And the preciousness of flying combat skills that can take shortcuts is naturally not low. This Xian level advanced flying combat skill is worth enough to rival the ground level low-level combat skills. This is definitely the favorite of the old 6 who love flying kites. Wei Yang placed the scroll aside and opened the last box. Inside is still a scroll, but there are 2 copies. Pick up the first one and open it. Xuanjia Advanced Fighting Skill, Roaring Lion Song. This is a combat technique that combines fighting spirit and sound waves, with a dual strike of physics and sound waves. Xian level advanced combat skills, not bad. Wei Yang raised his eyebrows and was already mentally prepared for it. He put it down and picked up the second scroll. Xuanjia advanced skill, Brave Lion Flame Strike. Advanced martial arts of the Xian level, belonging to the fire category. Wei Yang held the scroll and grinned silently. Surprise. Excited. This cultivation method is completely an unexpected gain. According to the original work, this third box was stolen by the Wolf Head Mercenary Corps in Qingshan town. Later, Moose Snake, the leader of the Wolf Head Mercenary Regiment, used the advanced combat technique of the Xian level. The Roaring Lion Song. Although the original work did not mention the existence of martial arts, the owner of this place clearly intended to leave opportunities and inheritance for future generations. It is unlikely that only a fighting skill will be left without the most crucial martial arts. After all, many martial arts and combat techniques are complementary and can exert the strongest power. So generally, the supporting techniques and combat techniques are put together, and now it has been proven that there is indeed no mistake. In the third box, not only the Xuanjia advanced fighting technique Mad Lion Song appeared, but also its supporting martial arts Mad Lion Flame Decision. The most important thing is that it is a fire-based cultivation method. What is currently lacking in Wei Yang? Without a doubt, the cultivation method. Wei Yang fan looked at the scroll and felt surprised, not too surprised. Since this senior can practice flying combat skills and prove that he also belongs to the fire genus, it is not surprising that his remaining martial arts belong to the fire genus. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Fierce Lion's Flame. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Fierce Lion's Flame Xuanjia Advanced Skill. Brave Lion Flame Determination. Xuanjia Advanced Fighting Skill. Roaring Lion Song. Supporting advanced martial arts and combat techniques of the Xuanjia level. This is probably the most advanced skill that can be found on the market within the Gamma Empire. With the accompanying combat skills, it is estimated that the power can be barely exerted, comparable to that of low-level combat skills. Of course, there are prefecture-level martial arts or combat skills within Yunlan sect, but they are martial arts and combat skills of Zhenzong sect, so they will definitely not trade them out. After calming his mind for a moment, Wei Yang carefully comprehended the content of the technique of the Wild Lion Flame Determination. The fierce lion flames, majestic and domineering, reaching the highest level of yang in hardness, condensing the power of the Lion King, gathering the fiery appearance of the Lion King. As Wei Yang carefully studied the content of the martial arts, a happy expression gradually appeared on his face and his heart was filled with excitement. This is a technique with the attributes of fire and yang, which perfectly matches oneself. Wei Yang himself is also a member of the fire genus, with a slight variation in the yang genus, which can be said to be perfectly matched with his martial arts. This is fate. Wei Yang couldn't suppress his inner excitement and immediately sat down cross-legged in this stone chamber, starting to activate his fighting energy and switch the path of his martial arts. Transfer to cultivation method. The advanced Huangjie technique, Red Fire Determination, has been enduring by Wei Yang for a long time. Now that he has a better cultivation method, he naturally changes it immediately without hesitation. With cultivation. The advanced martial arts of the Xian level are much more powerful than the Red Fire Determination, and the roots are also much more complex. Wei Yang closely guarded his mind, carefully leading a ray of fighting spirit to operate a new path of cultivation. As a ray of fighting spirit returned to Dantian after a week of operation, it suddenly transformed into a brand new fighting spirit. The volume has shrunk and been compressed and condensed. That faint red fighting spirit also transformed into a brand new fighting spirit with a touch of light gold in deep red. As time passed, his breath became more condensed and powerful, but his realm slowly declined. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. During these 7 days, Wei Yang has been almost tirelessly practicing new martial arts techniques. If you're hungry, eat your own dry food. If you're tired, take a break and continue practicing. Finally, 7 days later. In the stone chamber, Wei Yang slowly opened his eyes and a powerful aura erupted from his body. A deep red lion head with a faint golden hue emerged faintly, enveloping him. A majestic lion roar sounded faintly, shaking people's hearts. Explosive momentum. Suddenly, a circular wave of air spread and swept across the entire stone chamber. Wow! The dead bones on the seat have all scattered down. A few seconds later, everything returned to calm, and the lion's head phantom slowly converged into the body. Pili Pala Wei Yang stood up and stretched his body, feeling refreshed and in surprisingly good condition. At this point, his realm has fallen from a 6-star fighter to a 2-star fighter, but his strength has increased instead of decreasing, and his aura is even stronger and more condensed than when he was a 6-star fighter before. I believe that when Wei Yang returns to the 6-star Doushi, his overall strength will be at least 10 times stronger than the previous 6-star Doushi. This is the benefit of advanced martial arts. Whether it is the quality, quantity, attack power, defense power, endurance, recovery power, etc. of fighting spirit, they are all comprehensively strengthened. Wei Yang picked up the scroll of martial arts and couldn't help but sigh. This is just a high-level technique of the Xian level, the difference is just so big. What about the terraces? What about Tianjie? What kind of charm will that be? Putting down the fierce lion flame, Wei Yang picked up his fighting skills and opened it carefully. Xuanjie advanced fighting skills. Matched with the cultivation method. He only knows one intermediate yellow-level combat skill now. Stone Palm. Now I finally have a fighting skill that can support my appearance. At present, Wei Yang became somewhat eager to study. Crazy Lion Roar, an advanced combat skill of the Xian level, containing dual attacks of fighting spirit in sound waves. It can be released regardless of weapons or fists. Intense and domineering attack power, trained to perfection, combined with dual strength, the sound wave roars with fear, the fighting spirit extinguishes the body, and the dual strike is integrated, with power comparable to low-level combat skills at the ground level. After carefully reading the content of the Mad Lion chant, Wei Yang felt joyful. It's safe. Practice. So he immersed himself in it again. Who can resist the feeling of increasing strength? Anyway, it's okay now. Where are we practicing instead of practicing? Wei Yang decided to stay here and continue practicing. 3 days have passed again, and he has gained some insights into this fighting skill. Originally, it was paired with martial arts, complementing each other. With the foundation of martial arts, it is not too difficult to cultivate. Now, it can be considered as a beginner's level. Sitting cross-legged in front of the stone table, Wei Yang Chang exhaled a breath. Some reluctantly put down their fighting skills and picked up the black scroll beside them. Xian level advanced flying combat skills. This is a good thing worth as much as low-level combat skills. Soaring in the sky is everyone's dream, and Wei Yang is also very eager for free flight. Take a deep breath and adjust your state to the best. Wei Yang Kai slowly unfolded the scroll on the table, and 2 eagle wings, which were pitch black and chilling to the heart, appeared in sight. They were depicted on the scroll and looked lifelike, like living creatures. This pair of eagle wings have a dark color throughout their body, with faint purple mysterious patterns that resemble black metal casting, giving them a metallic texture to the touch. The eagle wings were like living creatures, blowing lightly, and the metal-like feathers on those wings were gently fluttering like real feathers. Black flame purple cloud carving, a 5th-order flying monster, is said to have a trace of the bloodline of an ancient phoenix. Its flying speed is among the top among all flying monsters, and it is cunning and ferocious in nature, extremely difficult to capture. It only lives in the southern part of the mainland's cloud haze area. The small line above this scroll records the origin of the wings used in the eagle wings flying combat technique. The 5th level warcraft is equivalent to a human Do Wong powerhouse, and it is also one of the best flying warcraft in the 5th level. The difficulty of dealing with it is no less than that of Do Huang, which indirectly demonstrates the strength of its creator. At the same time, the black flame purple cloud carving, as the name suggests, is also a warcraft of the fire genus, perhaps with wind attributes. The remaining soul of the black flame purple cloud carving. Wei Yang caressed the eagle wing scroll, and his powerful soul perception made him feel the trace of tyrannical soul hidden within these wings. This is the beast soul of the black flame purple cloud carving, equivalent to a spirit-like existence, which is also the key to refining this flying combat skill. With the strength of my soul, I don't need to worry too much about the residual soul attack of this purple cloud sculpture. Although it was at the 5th level during its lifetime, now it is just a residual soul. It is like rootless water, and after so many years of training, its wisdom only remains the instinct of beasts, so it should not pose a great threat, Wei Yang said to himself. Taking a deep breath, he moved his palms over the scroll and gently covered it. Wei Yang's eyes slowly closed. Shortly after holding his wings in his hand, the tyrannical eagle soul within the wings suddenly let out a sharp cry that made his soul tremble. The chirping sound pierced through the scroll, following Wei Yang's arm like a drill, hitting his mind. Wei Yang was attacked by his soul for the first time, and his whole body trembled suddenly, his face turning a bit pale. Humph. Wei Yang let out a soft snort, holding his mind firmly and his soul's perception outside his mind, forming several protective layers around him to resist the roaring sound. It seemed that seeing the soul's roar had no effect. After a moment of silence, the soul of the purple cloud eagle suddenly burst out of the scroll with an even more violent emotion, and then fiercely collided with Wei Yang's soul protection layer. Wei Yang let out a muffled groan, gritted his teeth, firmly holding onto his mind and resisting. Finally, this spiritual battle lasted for more than 10 minutes and ended slowly with the defeat of the purple cloud sculpture. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Surprise again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Surprise again. Wei Yang's face was somewhat pale as he opened his eyes, with a hint of exhaustion on his face. This kind of soulful collision is very dangerous and consumes the mind the most. Success. Wei Yang wiped away the sweat from his forehead and whispered. Looking down at the black scroll in his hand, his internal fighting spirit moved slowly along the track recorded on the scroll. After a moment, the fighting spirit circulated to the palm of the hand, rising from the palm. When the fighting spirit appeared in the palm of the hand, the eagle wings on the black scroll suddenly shone brightly. The purple light in the black grew stronger and finally turned into 2 small black-purple rays, which rushed into Wei Yang's palm like lightning. After entering Wei Yang's body, these 2 small black-purple rays of light rapidly circulated along the meridians. When they reached the meridians at the back of Wei Yang's spine, they paused and then began to forcefully open up the meridians. Pulled out 2 extremely small branches of the meridians. These 2 branches extend from the main meridian and only slowly stop when they reach the back ridge. Ah! Wei Yang gritted his teeth and let out a mournful scream of pain from his throat. Sweat dripped down from his forehead, his fists tightly clenched together. The excruciating pain of the torn muscles and veins is unbearable. Sleeping slot, pang. Wei Yang lay on the ground, his fists fiercely hitting the ground, his eyes turning red, and veins bulging on his forehead. Pang. The fist hit the rocky ground, splashing small pieces of gravel. At this moment, every second is so unbearable. I don't know how long it took, it seemed like a moment, and then it seemed like a long time. The severe pain gradually subsided like a tide. At this moment, Wei Yang was curled up on the ground, sweating profusely, as if he had just been taken out of the water. Breathing heavily, the whole body still felt a faint pain like a needle prick, and the whole person felt numb, unable to lift any strength. It wasn't until I rested for a while longer that the piercing sensation all over my body slowly dissipated and my body gradually regained some strength. Finally done. Wei Yang slowly got up, looking at the black scroll that had been thrown aside with lingering fear. I saw that there was already a blank space on the black scroll, and the eagle wings and font on it had all disappeared. Shaking his head and no longer paying attention to the empty scroll, Wei Yang took off his wet shirt, revealing the muscular upper body that appeared quite robust. Touching the back with your hand, you can feel that at some point, there have been an additional pair of black wing patterns, each about the size of a palm. These lines are slightly raised, like tattoos, and also like raised veins. With a movement of mind, the fighting spirit in my body flowed into the pair of wing tattoos behind me. Upon receiving the transmission of fighting spirit, the painted black tattoo immediately lit up, emitting a faint black-purple glow. In the end, it turned into a pair of solid black wings with mysterious purple patterns on the surface, slowly spreading out from behind Wei Yang. This is a pair of black wings that stretch out about 10 feet from behind. The feathers on top of it are clear and lifelike, cast like refined iron, giving people a metallic texture. Upon closer inspection, it was a wonderful feeling, as if a pair of wings had really grown on one's back. Wei Yang tried to control them to gently stir. Wings in sight. Suddenly, a gust of wind rose out of nowhere in the stone chamber, and a buoyancy appeared. Wei Yang slowly floated up and his feet began to lift off the ground. It was just the first attempt, and due to his lack of proficiency, he appeared somewhat crooked and twisted, like a newly learned bird, with slightly comical movements. Wei Yang enthusiastically kept trying, correcting his movements, and mastering balance. It was not until a long time had passed that Wei Yang managed to barely adapt. At this moment, he was suspended steadily in mid-air in the stone chamber, with his feet about a foot off the ground, suspended in the air, and his black wings gently swaying behind him. I can fly in the future. Wei Yang grinned, and after a while, he landed contentedly, folding his wings. Stopped the fighting spirit input, the black wings folded back, and once again formed a pair of black tattoos the size of each palm on the back. Slowly stretched lazily and put on clothes. With these wings, I will be much more convenient and safe in the future. Even if I encounter enemies that I cannot defeat, I can fly and run away at any time. As for enemies like Dou Wang and above, there are not many strong ones of this level in the entire Gamma Empire, and they are very few in total. What should I do to provoke them if I have nothing to do? Wei Yang clenched his fist and silently felt the surging fighting spirit in his body. Due to the conversion of martial arts, although I have fallen to the second star of Doushi, my strength has increased instead of decreasing, he said. Now that I have the foundation of advanced martial arts at the Xian level, I believe I can fully unleash my potential. It will take me 3 or 4 months to recover to the Doushi 6-star realm. In the stage of cultivating Douji Qi before the Dou, because the martial artist's physique still appears weak and is still in the foundational stage, there are not many methods that can be used to improve. Therefore, most cultivators who can enhance their fighting energy by a certain amount per year are already considered genius figures. After becoming a fighter, due to different factors such as martial arts qualifications, environmental resources, etc., the fighter's cultivation speed is much faster than that of the Dou Qi stage. A fighter with excellent conditions, resources, and qualifications can easily surpass several stars within a year. Although Wei Yang is not like Xiao Yan, he has the guidance of the teacher Yao Lao and countless pills to assist him. But the technique he is currently practicing is a high-level technique of the Xian level, which is 3 or 4 levels higher than the initial red fire Ju, and 6 or 7 levels higher than Xiao Yan's low-level yellow level burning Ju at the beginning. In addition, with one's own qualifications and a combination of martial arts, the effect is not only 1 + 1, but also 2, which is enough to offset factors such as pill resources. Overall, Wei Yang's cultivation speed in the early stage was definitely only faster than that of Xiao Yan. After 3 years, Xiao Yan regained his talent and began practicing from the 3rd stage of Doushi Qi. Wei Yang was already able to distance himself from Xiao Yan with this. This is confidence. Wei Yang looked around this stone chamber with excitement, which had been there for nearly half a month. Here, he can be said to have achieved tremendous gains, which was a great opportunity to change his fate in the early stages. Wei Yang took a deep breath and calmed down his mood. After sorting out his emotions, he walked up to the stone table and looked at the scattered bones on the seat behind the table. "Senior, I'm sorry," Wei Yang bowed awkwardly upon seeing this. Previously, he successfully modified his martial arts skills but couldn't control his own momentum, causing the skeleton of his senior to scatter. "Please wait a moment, senior. I will let you settle down soon," Wei Yang said softly. "Walk to the seat, carefully pick up the scattered skeletons on the ground and pile them aside, then plan to find a place to dig a pit." Looking around, Wei Yang moved the seat away. "I saw that the ground under the seat was cracked, with many spider web-like cracks and gravel scattered there, unlike the ground in other parts of the stone room that was completely integrated." Wei Yang carefully inspected and reached out to touch the cracked ground, discovering that it seemed to have been dug up and backfilled by someone before. Did this senior bury something underneath? Wei Yang couldn't help but speculate to himself, feeling a little excited. His palms were enveloped in fighting spirit, his fingers were like claws, and he squatted there, starting to dig holes. As pieces of broken stones were dug out, Wei Yang quickly dug out a stone pit that was about 2 feet long and 1 foot deep. This is an already dug stone pit, which was only backfilled and restored before. Does this senior even seem to have dug the pit himself? This way, it's also convenient. Just dig it open and bury it directly. Suddenly, Wei Yang paused. That's it. After digging to the bottom, the rock below appeared completely integrated. At the bottom of the pit, a black antique ring is lying quietly at the bottom of the stone pit. Wei Yang's eyes lit up. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Ring, Mysterious Flame Diagram. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The Ring, Mysterious Flame Diagram. Wei Yang picked up the ring and carefully examined it. This is an antique black ring with some simple and mysterious patterns on the surface. Trying to perceive with his soul, Wei Yang immediately became excited. It's Neji. I'll just say, as a strong warrior at least at the level of Emperor Dou, how could he not have accepted the precepts and stayed behind? I see. The senior had already dug the pit, but later on, after gaining external benefits, if one wanted to bury the senior's bones, they could only observe carefully in this stone chamber and discover cracks and gravel under the seat. Digging open the stone pit. You can naturally discover this Na ring. Then, when packing up the bones and burying them, if you're lucky, you might even be able to find the remaining picture of the pure lotus demon fire from within the bone's arms. According to the original description, the weight inside the arm bones appears slightly heavier than other bones due to the presence of residual images, which can be detected more carefully. It's really a loop after loop. Wei Yang was speechless and couldn't help but look at the pile of bones. It seems that this senior is also a senior 6. Everything, including the human heart, is calculated to death. It's really. Taking a light breath, Wei Yang stopped thinking and instead focused his attention back on the ring in his hand. As soul power emerges, it rushes into the Neji. Due to the passage of time and the fact that the owner of the ring has already passed away, there is no longer any obstruction within the ring, and it is now an ownerless ring. So Wei Yang's soul power did not encounter any obstacles and easily entered a strange space. This is a space of about 300 square meters, with an internal height of about 3 floors. As Wei Yang's perception entered, there was a clear view inside. There aren't too many miscellaneous items, only some jade bottles and boxes. Wei Yang checked and found that most of them were empty. With a movement of his mind, Wei Yang took out several jade bottles and boxes that seemed to contain items, totaling dozens, and placed them on the ground. Opening a jade bottle, only some gray powder was poured out from inside. Judging from these powders, this jade bottle should have been filled with pills before, but perhaps with the passage of time, too long ago, the pills inside have completely lost their medicinal properties and turned into residue. So Wei Yang opened the other jade bottles and boxes one after another, and the situation was similar. It could be a pill or a herb, but as time goes by, the internal seal loosens and disappears, causing the medicinal power of the internal items to fade away, leaving only residue. Unfortunately, Wei Yang couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. But soon he cleared up his mood and no longer hesitated. There are already many benefits, we cannot be too greedy. Wei Yang took everything back into the ring, including items such as the pure lotus demon fire residual diagram and martial arts. Put the ring on his index finger, and Wei Yang continued to immerse himself inside the ring to check for any omissions. Soon, a new discovery was made. What is this? With a thought, Wei Yang took out a simple black scroll from inside. Spread it out. It's a map. A map emitting a strange aura. Wei Yanglian watched carefully. Quickly, following some place name signs on the map, I found the clue. This is the Warcraft Mountains, this is the Tagore Desert. Wei Yang followed the route guidance on the map and found that it was a map that delved deep into the uninhabited area of the Tagore Desert. Perhaps even deeper than imagined, because according to the proportions on the map, this route seems to have penetrated into the depths of the endless sand sea. That place has already surpassed the habitat of the snake race and will continue to penetrate for an unknown number of miles. Legend has it that it is an absolute forbidden zone for life. That kind of place may not even be deeply explored by the snake race, let alone explored. Wei Yang couldn't help but take a deep breath and continue to look. At the end of the map route, there is a small red circle sign with a crimson skull symbol inside the circle, which looks very eerie and can't help but feel a chill in the heart. Next to the skull, there is a black flame pattern that seems to be burning and jumping. This black flame looks very lively and vivid, like a black sun burning, giving people a feeling of endless heat. The strange aura emanating from the map emanates from this flame-like and black sun-like pattern. Does it look like a flame from the black sun? It doesn't seem like any flame on the list of abnormal flames, does it? Like the flames of the black sun. Not like nothingness swallowing inflammation, nor like the 9 nether wind flame, nor like the 3000 yen flame. What kind of flame is this? The emptiness swallowing inflammation can be ruled out first, because it is in the soul race and itself is equivalent to the peak of the Doushi, and has already transformed into a human form. And void swallowing flame ranks second, just like the pure lotus demon fire, they are unique beings in the world, and at least there will not be a second one on the Doushi continent. Wei Yang carefully pondered over the 23 different types of fire described in the original work and found that none of them were like. Is it a brand new unknown fire? Wei Yang thought so. It's not entirely impossible. After all, the formation of every strange fire takes an incredibly long time, and it may not be unacceptable for an unknown one to remain undetected. Heaven and earth have different fires, and each one has a mysterious origin. Perhaps it is the flame carried by the meteorite that descended from the sky, or perhaps it is the lava ground fire that has been burned for thousands of years deep in the volcano, or some strange places and environments that create it carved by the power of heaven and earth. It takes 100 years to form a spirit, 1,000 years, and 10,000 years to form. After pondering for a long time without any clue, Wei Yang no longer hesitated, but solemnly put away the map that recorded the unknown flames. It's no use thinking too much now, it's the depths of an endless sea of sand, within the forbidden zone of life. It's not too late to explore slowly when you have the strength in the future. Wei Yang carefully placed the bones into the stone pit, then filled and buried them with crushed stones, and stacked a small tomb. After finishing these things, Wei Yang respectfully paid his respects to the simple tomb and said, "I am fortunate enough to have the opportunity bestowed upon me by my senior. I am extremely grateful." Wei Yang's heart was indeed filled with gratitude. This opportunity and harvest are enough to make his future growth path go smoothly. If you receive gifts from your predecessors, you should naturally be grateful. After the worship, Wei Yang stood up and began to tidy up the other items inside the stone chamber. Firstly, the 3 piles of gold coins and jewelry are included in the ring. Then he went to the flower bed in the corner, took out a jade bottle, jade box, and a small jade shovel from the ring, carefully dug out the dozens of herbs and packed them. After finishing these, Wei Yang took a light breath and walked back to the stone table, frowning slightly as he watched the 7-colored poison classic. After some consideration, he finally picked up the 7-colored poison classic and decided to take it with him. Including those 3 stone boxes, they were also included with the keys in the ring. "Senior, I have disturbed you this time and will leave now. I will destroy the passage for outsiders to enter later and will not let outsiders disturb your eternal sleep." After respectfully bowing, Wei Yang turned around and left. "Exit the stone chamber and press the button." The stone gate slowly descended and closed the stone chamber behind it. Later, Wei Yang's hands filled with fighting spirit, his fingers like claws, and he began to destroy the nearby cave walls. As stones fell down, the stone gate behind was gradually buried. It took Wei Yang 3 days to finally completely destroy the entire deep passage, completely blocking it with endless stones and burying it. The entrance of the cave has also been restored to its original state, covering up all traces. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Little Doctor Immortal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Little Doctor Immortal. The sky is deep blue, the scorching sun hangs high, and the distant sky is shrouded in white clouds. On the outskirts of the Warcraft Mountains, a black figure flashed through the air, flying rapidly between the cliffs. Behind it, a pair of flapping black wings slowly swayed, with purple patterns on it, appearing quite mysterious and eerie. The feeling of free flight is really good. Wei Yang wore a joyful smile at the corner of his mouth, enjoying the feeling of soaring to the fullest. After a moment, Wei Yang stopped at a mountaintop, his wings folded behind him, and his figure slowly descended. However, the cost of flying is really considerable. Even at my current level as a 6-star fighting master, and still practicing advanced techniques of the Xian level, with a strong fighting spirit and high quality, I can only maintain a flight time of about an hour, which consumes most of my fighting spirit. Even while flying, if you allocate some of your mental energy to exhale and use the techniques to recover, you can only extend the flight time by about half an hour at most, which will consume most of your fighting spirit. At present, it is not possible to achieve self-sufficiency. Wei Yang shook his head and sighed. It seems that if you want to fly for a long time, achieve complete self-sufficiency, consume and recover at the same level, at least you need to obtain the cultivation of a great fighter. Wei Yang sat cross-legged and used his technique to restore energy consumption. As the cultivation moves, the internal fighting energy begins to slowly recover. The advanced technique of Xuanjie has a considerable recovery speed. Just like now, the body has consumed most of its fighting energy due to the use of flying combat skills, and it quickly recovers between breathing and breathing. After just over 10 minutes, it had already recovered to 7, 8, or 8. Compared to the consumption and recovery time during the previous cultivation of Red Fire Resolve, it is much stronger. No wonder everyone dreams of pursuing higher level martial arts. After another moment, Wei Yang opened his eyes and a hint of brilliance flashed through them. The consumed fighting spirit has completely recovered, and there is still some improvement. After leaving the cliff cave, he did not rush to leave the Warcraft Mountains, but chose to stay nearby and practice. It has been a full 4 months now, and Wei Yang's cultivation has also been restored to that of a 6-star dosher. Although they are both 6-star fighters, their strength is incomparable. What is the difference in strength and combat effectiveness compared to before? More than 10 times. Entering the Warcraft Mountains this time, I have gained a lot and it's time to go back. Wei Yang stood up and turned his gaze towards the direction of Qingshan town. Shwa. The black wings spread out, and Wei Yang's figure moved, transforming into a black shadow, flying towards the outside of the mountain range. The return journey was very fast. After all, it was a flying journey, much faster than when I first came in. 10 minutes later, it was almost time to leave the Warcraft Mountains. In the distance, one can already vaguely see the outline of Qingshan town. At this point, Wei Yang found a hidden forest to settle in, folded his wings, and chose to walk out of the mountain. He doesn't want to be too flamboyant. In places like Qingshan town, the strongest is only at the level of 2 or 3-star fighters, and they are few and far between. Natural knowledge is extremely limited, and it is estimated that there is no such thing as flying combat skills at all. Suddenly upon seeing the flight, one would think it was a battle to turn wings, and think it was the arrival of the Dou King powerhouse. Dou Wangchang is a high-level presence in the entire Gamma Empire, let alone Qingshan town. Looking at the flying person again, oh ho, a 15 or 16-year-old boy. Isn't this supposed to scare people to death? It's probably not long before the entire Gamma Empire will cause a sensation. Why keep a low profile like this? Wei Yang walked in the forest, on the path that had been trampled by mercenaries for years and months. His footsteps were light and his mood was also very good. It is not an exaggeration to say that it has been almost 5 months since entering the Warcraft Mountains, and now it has come out again, with significant changes before and after. The whole person seemed to have been elevated once, with a faint sense of confidence in their eyes, and their overall temperament had also become somewhat different. This is the confidence brought about by the change in strength. There is an intangible aura. Qingshan town. Just out of the mountain, don't rush back for now. Take a 2-day break before leaving, Wei Yang said to himself. I stayed in the Warcraft Mountains for almost 5 months, and now that I come out, I naturally need to rest for 2 days first. So he went straight back to the inn where he had stayed 5 months ago. Shopkeeper, come to the upper room, prepare hot water, and have another table of good dishes. Wei Yang walked into the inn and went straight to the counter, ordering. Okay, young master. The shopkeeper quickly agreed and called out, San, come and take this young master. Okay. Young master, please come with me. The waiter responded and respectfully led the way. Wei Yang stepped forward to keep up. Before taking a few steps, Wei Yang suddenly stopped in his tracks, his gaze slightly shifted, and he looked towards a corner of the lobby. There, a beautiful girl who looked only 12 or 13 years old sat alone. The little girl's figure looked a bit thin and frail, wearing a simple white cloth dress with a touch of dust on her body. Her skin was fair, and her small face, about the size of a palm, was stained with some dust. Her hair was slightly disheveled, and from her slightly parted eyebrows and eyes, as well as her delicate facial features, it was evident that she was a typical beauty. The little girl sat quietly in the corner, nibbling at mantu. At first glance, it gives a fresh and ethereal feeling, like a white orchid silently blooming in that deep valley. On the petite body that had already begun to develop, Xiaohe only revealed her sharp corners. The most eye-catching thing is still the small waist that is tied by a white cloth belt and outlined. It seems that it can be easily mastered with one hand. Her willow eyebrows furrowed lightly, with a hint of fatigue and a hint of melancholy between them. It's her. Wei Yang raised his eyebrows and lightly stroked the black ring on his index finger with his thumb. Little Dr. Immortal. Without looking at anything else, just by looking at his temperament like a serene orchid in an empty valley and his prominent and exquisite waist, one can determine his identity without doubt. It's really a coincidence. I just came out of the Warcraft Mountains and happened to meet her. It seems that the little Dr. Immortal has just drifted to Qingshan town. It's really fate, Wei Yang let out a soft breath. Fate is such a wonderful thing. You don't want to go find her, but she just suddenly appeared in front of you. Just like it was destined by fate. Wei Yang took the 7-colored poison classic from the cliff cave, but had not yet decided whether to hand it over to the little Dr. Immortal in the future. He only wanted to take it back to Wutan City to study first. As for whether or not to hand it over to her in the future, let's talk about it. Just as I was about to leave the mountain, I coincidentally met a little medical fairy here, as if it had been arranged. Wei Yang's eyes narrowed slightly. Young master. On the side, the waiter saw Wei Yang standing there and staring straight at a little girl. He waited for a while before cautiously reminding him softly. Wei Yang gave him a faint glance, and the waiter was immediately startled. He lowered his head and dared not speak again. Humph. Wei Yang withdrew his gaze and took steps to leave. It's just a coincidence. End of this chapter.